Okay, approval of the minutes from our previous town board meeting on January 4th. Motion by Mr. Gibbons, second. Second by Mr. Montroy. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Okay, open bids for our ambulance, stair pro, stair chair, and our defibrillator. Thank you. Okay, this is from Northeastern Rescue Vehicles, Rob Riley, 10 Dwight Park Drive, Syracuse. Bid for a 2015 or newer F-450 4x4 rescue vehicle. Let's see. 2016 F-450 4x4 ambulance bid sheet. 2016 Ford F-450 4x4 diesel motor, custom 170-inch medallion. That's the back. Dual forward facing sirens, LED emergency lighting, LED scene lighting, new stretcher power load stretcher, new stretcher mid-spec cot, forward LED turn signal lights, 4 LED grill emergency lights, 7x3 forward intersection lights, forward tow hooks, backup camera, flip up rear step, rear brakes, rear brake lights. Didn't know that wasn't a thing. Rear turn signal lights, Kusamal Auto eject shoreline. What's that, when you get by the water, it throws them out or something? Extended LED cabinet lighting, WeatherTech floor mats, cab coat hangers, liquid spring rear suspension, blow straps for extended door for exterior doors, net on squad bench, reinforced squad bench lock, Zoll X tech mount bracket, lock on ALS stack, outlet on ALS stack, outlet of action area in front center console. The ambulance does not come with any warranty, it promises future performance, and that must be everything all in it together. And they bid $122,000. Yep, bid for use 2015. That's not gonna be right. The Striker power loads the stretcher, right, Dan? Okay. What's the new Striker mid-spec cot? That's the cot that goes into the power loads.
But yeah, so the power load and stretcher are two different things.
Okay, what would the heart monitor be? Would it say heart monitor or something else?
Yeah, I don't know if they did that. 122, I don't think they did that.
Yes. No, we're only asking for the stair chair and the, and you guys are buying the heart monitor, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well anyways, the bid's $122,000. Delivery date is February 22nd, 2023. Gonna have to be graphics and everything else, and we don't need it until 1st of April, 2023. So, anybody wanna look this over? You guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion to accept the bid, from
Should Dan look it over or is Dan out?
Northeastern Rescue Vehicles. You wanna look it over? No, okay. All right, Northeastern Rescue Vehicles for the 2016 ambulance, $122,000. Need a motion for that?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second. Second by Mr. Bruskevich. Is there any discussion?
Welcome to the future.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. It's our big step forward into the ambulance business at the county. Speaking with someone over the weekend, the city of Syracuse is buying 10 ambulances. They're going into the ambulance business. So it's a service in crisis, and the county stepping in and trying to help out some of these agencies around the county that are not in good shape. As I said, we did a study 7 years ago, and today all the things that they said that were going to go wrong have gone wrong. So we decided to take action at the county, and the town of Sullivan is the first agency that we're looking at, and it isn't because it's a sweetheart deal. It's because the town of Sullivan has almost 16,000 people, and we have a payer base, and there's a need here for 2 ambulances. I told you when I talked to Troy from AMR, our costs were gonna go up double, and that would have just been for 1 ambulance, not 2. And our outside agencies are coming in and covering almost 400 calls a year, and that's putting the stress on outside agencies. So this is the way that we're gonna need to go, and we're just gonna have to work on it as we go along. We are trying to model after Livingston County. They've taken over their ambulance services, and they've done a pretty good job on what they've done. There's gonna be winners and losers, but at the end, we're all here to serve the public, and this is the best way that we can see how to do it with the emergency services.
John, what's the dates? When will we first see it on the road?
April 1st. April 1st, AMR will be leaving the station, and Madison County will be moving in. They're gonna transition, right? You guys are gonna transition, Dan?
Yeah, our plan is the last 2 weeks of March, we'll provide backup to AMR. So you'll see the ambulances here mid-March, but we don't run primary. AMR still has primary. So April 1st.
Everybody good? Okay. Public hearing on local law 20, F for 2022, updating code enforcement program. Anybody here, because the public hearing is still open, is anybody here to speak for or against that? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was looking for this list of items on page 7 that were exempted from the permit, but we haven't been able to find that yet.
I talked to Art right before the meeting, so my associate contacted the state, and it was explained that this is a list that we can create. So if we wanted to create a list of portable electric heating, ventilation, or cooling equipment, then that's what will become exempt from having to comply with
But
this.
if we don't pass this,
If you
it's
don't
all
do
exempt
anything
anyways.
more, it's probably moot, as they say.
So are you guys ready to vote on this thing?
Well, we're still in the middle of the public hearing. Are we done with comments?
Yeah, but-
Are we comfortable?
Nobody's coming, what, 2 months on comments?
Yeah.
Art's got it, it's got it. But no, I know that, I got that, but I'm saying that, if we don't vote for this.
Nobody else has spoken
All
on
of
it
his
yet.
concerns are moot.
Your options are to close the public hearing, take a yay or nay vote, or to permanently just table it, and if you want it to come back around, it can. If you vote yay, then it gets adopted. If you vote no, then we just walk away from that. And if you ever have to do this again, we just reintroduce
You
it.
just can't permanently table it when you table something.
Yeah,
Come
I'm
up
not a
with the
fan
next-
of that.
It has to come up with the next.
I'm not a fan of that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of doing that. So I would say you vote yay or nay tonight. If for some reason you end up wanting to adopt it, then we'd introduce it with a new number.
What are the consequences of the advantages, John?
Well, I've talked about this with some other municipalities who have elected not to do anything with it. what it might come down to is whether our code program is quote unquote compliant with the state requirement. And so it might show up in maybe some enforcement matters, but I can't say for sure because it's all brand new to everybody. But I'd probably say 70% of my municipalities have adopted this, 30% have tabled it for a few meetings, and one client said they're gonna turn it down. So you guys are sort of in that zone where you wanna decide if you're gonna do it or not.
So you want me to throw gas on fire?
You do whatever you want.
So, in the governor's proposal, in her new New York housing compact, Andrew Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo usurped home rule law, some of us feel, with a 2% tax cap. That's up to localities to set their tax rate. It's always been that way in home rules in the state constitution. So now, with this energy, and everybody's heard me complain about these solar panels, with anything over 20 megawatts, the state can cite these things and take away your zoning and codes from the state. So they usurp home rule law. So now, the current governor has decided that in the name of equity, she will give you a chance, the localities, to cite housing in the name of equity in your township or your municipality. And if you don't do that within 3 years, the state will usurp home rule law and they will come in and say where certain housing will go. So
And the process by which it's approved.
so
and
this
located,
is not good. So if you guys want to keep going down the road of the state telling you what to do, they're slowly taking over everything. And I say, hey, you want to enforce your stupid laws, do them yourself.
John, this is very much like the solar discussion we're having with those 20 plus megawatt projects where the state created its own agency to approve those regardless of local zoning regulations, which is in the courts right now. And this seems to be a similar type of exercise of state power.
Well, is this an effort, John, just to remove, or seems to be an effort to remove local control and eventually eliminate local control?
I feel like this is something our local state representatives should provide us some information on. Yes, a lot of that stuff is, but they know about it, they can tell us.
Well, they know about it and they can tell us all about it.
What's the agenda?
The agenda is they're gonna cite this stuff in the name of equity for housing and in the name of their electrification agenda, the solar panels and everything, and they're just gonna run over localities. You know, the home rule specifically states, look it up, it's for localities, and you cannot infringe on somebody else's right. So, okay, we got this 500-acre solar panel farm that wants to go over on New Boston Road. There is residential housing over there, all along where this thing goes. So are you infringing on their rights? Sure you are. Nobody wants to, these things are power plants. Nobody wants to live by one of these things. So why wouldn't that come into play? But they're not gonna take that into consideration. They're gonna cite them where they want to. There's 1,400 acres of them going into Fenner, gonna cover up decent farmland up there. So it's clearly a steamroll from the state government.
Absolutely.
Home rule was put in effect, I was reading it yesterday, 1963 or 64 in the state, and the Constitution cemented in the state Constitution. It's actually part of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution.
It's constitutionally protected, yeah.
Yes.
And that's probably where the battle line should be drawn. So I sent you the legal briefs from the
Yep, I
lawsuit
got
that was
those.
going
I'm
on.
gonna make some phone calls this afternoon. So that's what's going on with home rule and, you know, them coming in with codes and what you're gonna do and not do. And we've all heard about, you know, I think some of this stuff, the energy efficiency on homes with the installation and all that stuff, I think Larry will agree that's a great thing and stuff, but you getting rid of your gas stove for electric stove because they're pushing their agendas a bit too far. So do you want to keep the agenda open, or do you want the public hearing open, or do you want to close it and go?
I'm still asking questions.
Yes, sir, Art.
So it's a little bit of the cart before the horse. We've got a local law that refers to a non-existent list. You know, are you gonna approve a local law that refers to a list that we can't find? Or we're gonna put the list together first and put them, maybe do them both together, or is there a plan for, doesn't sound like there's a plan for anything yet in terms of this list of
portable electric.
things that it refers to.
Well, and I think what John was asking, Art, is if we're not going to move forward with it,
We don't need the list.
then let's, we're not gonna create a list that we're all gonna say no to. So I guess that's.
Oh, I can't
That's
train.
what I'm trying to get
Yeah, I'm just-
to.
yeah. So we can either create the list, but, all right.
Larry
has it. Yeah.
Larry, go ahead.
Building codes specify that a portable appliance is a UL listed, like a heater, or air conditioner goes in a window, or something along that line. It's a UL listed appliance, that's the portable listed appliance.
So Stacy had called and talked to them, Larry, and they said that this is something that we could make our own list. So you're saying it's UL rated?
Yeah,
Through the
That's-
underwriters?
that's
Yeah.
what a portable
Yeah.
appliance is.
So the statute, the model law they gave us didn't say that, so we had asked the question after Art had raised it, went back to the state, said, well, what were these things? So they said, well, we think this is you could make up a list of things, so you're saying it's the UL rated stuff?
Yes, stuff you buy at Kmart or Sears.
So if it's not UL
Oh, we
listed,
could put UL listed on here.
let's just
for-
say if it's not UL listed,
Yeah,
and it causes a problem at your house, fire, pipes to break, whatever, then can your insurance company say, go back to the code and say that it wasn't listed, so we're not paying? You're shaking your head yes, Larry. Or it wasn't UL listed, so therefore it wasn't an approved appliance in your home and we don't have to pay. See, I say, it's okay. But that's it. I'm only one vote. So what do you wanna do?
The other concern I have.
Yes, sir. All right, sorry.
Is on page 13, it talks about these outdoor events where the planned attendance exceeds 1,000 people. And you've got something else about, you've got a different
Right.
law about permits. But I don't remember how many people it referred to, but there needed to be some coordination with that.
we have a local regulation.
Yeah, we got a local
Mass
law that
gathering.
says
Is it
But I don't know
250,
how many.
200, what was it?
Yes, 200.
200.
Is it 200?
Is our local.
So this
gathering.
should match.
Yeah.
So we've got it covered without the state coming in and trying to cover
Yeah,
it
you
for us. So I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, I made the motion, seconded by Mr. Martin. Any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, does anybody wanna make the motion to not do this?
I'll make a motion not to.
I would suggest make a motion to approve it and vote no.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all right, I've said it.
Legal words and shit.
Change
Okay.
my motion.
All right.
Let's approve this, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion's been made to
Sucker to
approve
do
it by John Burskevich, second.
I'll second it, John.
Second by Mr. Martin. Okay, is there any discussion?
Oh, God.
Okay, all in,
The fact that we can come back and revisit this at a later time
Okay.
helps with my
It's
decision.
easy though.
Thank you.
all in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
No, wait.
Make sure you understand.
Well, you're
Vote
the
to
only two that
approve it.
voted aye.
Vote to approve it.
I said- I think
You didn't say that.
No, I
It's a
said
vote to
approve it.
approve.
It's a vote.
You're not gonna say aye.
No.
Okay, so all
You're gonna
in
wait for
favor,
John to
all
say-
in favor signify by voting aye.
Nothing.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay. The nays have it. Too much work.
You learn something every day. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna skip short-term rentals for right now. We got, Mr. Doug Woolhorder here for a zone change on Route 31. Doug, you wanna just give us a quick rundown on what you're doing here?
Yes, I did provide the electronic copy of the legal description. I think you received that. Were you able to print a map out, or would you?
Yep, we got everything.
We got a map up there.
Oh, okay, terrific. So we're at a point in our lives where we're looking to sell some property. We've had a lot of interest in the property, but also the interest in a business zone extended from the current business zone adjacent to our property. And I think I put that in my initial letter to you. So with that, we are proposing the extension of an existing business zone on the southern portion of our property.
specific as far as?
So what I did in anticipation of the meeting, I did an introductory, resolution and the proposed local law, which would capture the request for the zone change. I've also included in the packet a short EAF, part 1 and 2, which if we move forward tonight, we have to go through the questions quickly, which we can do. Schedule a public hearing, and then we send it to county planning. And I think I anticipated a February, second meeting of February, because I need more time for the notices. So if you move this forward for a public hearing, it would be at your February second meeting. Date is 15th at 9
February
a.m.
15th,
Yep.
which, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be here or not, I really want it.
Well, it's whatever date you wanna do. I just don't wanna do it the very next week.
Is that
It's not
good?
my thing.
Work on your schedule, Doug?
Yeah, it's February 15th?
Yep.
Yes.
Alright, so, you need a motion to do the seeker on this?
Yeah, I'll walk you through it quickly so that we did it. Everybody's familiar with what the project would be. And your action is as a legislative body to amend the zoning per town law and our own code. So the first question is, and I've already pre-checked either small impact or no impact. If you disagree, we can stop and talk about it. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? Probably small impact. 2, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? We're only changing the zoning now. Obviously, it would open it up to potential other uses under our business zoning. 3, the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. 4 doesn't matter. It's a CEA. We don't have one. 5, the proposed action result in an adverse change in existing level of traffic or affect infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? No. 6, the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? No. Or public or private wastewater facilities? No. Proposed action impair the character or quality of an important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resource? No. Will the proposed act result in an adverse change in natural resources? No. Will it result in an increase in the potential erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will it create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? I checked no or small impact for all those. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
I'll also mention this, if somebody purchases that property and have a plan, it's gonna go through one of our boards. It'll be a deeper environmental review of that specific project. So we'll take a little comfort in that. So I've checked the box for negative declaration. I've actually put that negative declaration with the findings in the resolution that we've created for you today. All this does is adopt that negative declaration, set this down for a public hearing on the 15th at 9 a.m. And then at that time, it'll be back before the public, and you can either act on it then or table it, or whatever you decide to do.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move that, John.
Okay, motion by, Mr. Martin, second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Montroy. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, that's setting the public hearing for February 15th at 9 a.m.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, fire department grant for the self-contained breathing apparatuses. The lady that's writing the grants wants $750 each for the grants to put them in, and they will go through the town, with the town's, numbers, right, Beth, for the
Yeah,
grant?
each of the departments will pay the $750 for the grant.
Okay, and this is to replace the, $650,000 with the self-contained breathing apparatuses that are, running low on their lifespan, that we've got to replace for the 3 departments. So I need a motion for that. Motion by Mr. Gibbons, second. Second by Mr. Montroy. Is there any discussion?
John, does this typically give us a much better chance? Because I know we've applied for grants in the past through the chiefs. I'm assuming this will help us with this process.
This is the one that they had put in before. And actually, they did it through the village. And the village put in that this was for the police department, which that's how it got muddled up. Now it's specifically for the fire departments.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, purchase of our, Smeel Spartan Pumper 681 to the Lake Delta Fire Department. The sum of $25,000. That's the only bid we've gotten on the truck. It was on Auctions International for a long time. Didn't get any bids or anything, so, Jason, these guys approached Jason, Chief Baker, and this is what we're looking at, so. Need a motion to approve that? So motion by Mr. Montroy, second? Second by Mr. Burskevich. Is there any discussion?
I would only add that in the transfer, we're doing with no warranties expressed or applied, it's sold as is. And, and it is surplus to the department, and or the town, so that there's no real use for us to keep it.
Okay. So you want that as a separate resolution?
Yeah, we'll pick it up in the minutes, Jim.
Okay. Okay.
All one thing.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, discussion on short-term rentals, local law. So, we're looking at, I don't have which town was it we were looking at?
So there's this town called the town of Kennedys, which is sort of what we'll call the quote-unquote gold standard for how to address these, because they've addressed all the constitutional issues that you can have when you try to regulate short-term rentals. And you guys all know short-term rentals are a multi-billion-dollar industry now, and we've heard some complaints in the town. Residents have come in and said they're some of these uses are objectionable to them in their neighborhoods, and you do have the right under your various powers under the town law, municipal home rule law, to reasonably regulate that as a use. So you regulate the use, not the owners. That's the critical thing. You can't regulate an owner, you regulate the use. Which brings me to this Kennedy's law, because this law is one of the few that I've seen that does it the right way, in my opinion, which it regulates that property, but not the owners. The tricky part is some of the older laws, they used to require that the owner had to be present to have a short-term rental. Some courts have recently struck down those laws that have that language in there, saying it impacts what's called the dormant commerce clause, because it tends to interfere with interstate trade, because the guy's from out of town. And now he's got handcuffs on him because people that live in the state or lived at the property, they have a better opportunity to use that property. This sample one, which I do like, has language in there that says you have to have a responsible person, whether it's the owner or not, doesn't matter, but somebody that's in charge, responsible, and we can play with this if this is what we want to do. It has to respond to a complaint within, you make it up, X number of hours, X number of days, and then if codes investigates this, theoretically, they could terminate your permit to use your place for short-term rentals. So I would suggest we could walk through this one and see what you like and what you don't like, or just talk about the concepts of short-term rentals. How do you want to handle it?
I'd like to read it.
I sent that out. If you might be able to find it, but I sent that out. And I can send it.
Yeah, we've had it for a couple meetings.
Okay.
So it's a Kennedy's, C-A-N-A-D-I-C, Kennedy's.
Yeah, back in December.
Yeah.
So let me go over a few more features.
I think the basic thing is we're gonna have to create a list. And there'll
registry.
probably be a fee-based registry.
Yeah.
Everybody's gotta have skin in the game.
Hey, John, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why do we need to have it at all? I mean, why do
That's a
we need?
question for you, not for me.
Because it's,
No,
because
I'm
it's a
serious.
problem, because it's a
No,
problem.
yeah,
Well,
some-
we had the one gentleman come in that, just recently, that it's behind their house, and it's an issue with people renting it and, raising heck and not caring because they don't live in the neighborhood. And then last summer, we had the issue with the cars parking on one of the skinny roads, the narrow roads. Well, that becomes a problem for emergency vehicles, ambulance, fire trucks, all that kind of stuff.
My question is, why do we need to approve them at all? Why short-term rentals, why do we want them? who are they benefiting on Oneida Lake right now? It's just, and the only reason I'm saying that is because I've been reading what other towns are doing, and that's one of the options that they're putting out in front. Why
Okay.
have them at all? Because there's the definition of a short-term rental versus a monthly rental for a camp is, I mean, they just roll back and forth.
It's all in the definition, John's right, so one of your options would be say, let's define a short-term rental as renting it for any period of time less than X, 14 days, 30 days, and you say, all those can't do it as a use. Beyond that, a regular month-to-month rental, you wouldn't really even get into that, because people can rent houses, I can rent somebody's house and live there, that's not a short-term rental, because you define that to not be a short-term rental.
And my take actually is that there's a few people that have moved into our local communities and established those and without our knowledge. And now we're trying to make amends to allow them to do it. So I just don't know why.
What are we gonna do about the traffic, the parking issues and that kind of thing?
Well, we won't have a parking issue.
Oh,
if
he's
it's-
saying
ban.
I'm talking about banning.
He's saying
I don't
So
see.
what do you do about the local people? What do you-
I'll let you run that meeting, I'll make sure somebody's up.
You know what? I'll be glad to do it, and I'll have every resident on the road in the meeting with me.
Yeah, but they're all over the place. Who had a picture?
There's not that
Somebody had
many
a
on-
picture of those.
They're all over the
Oh,
place.
they're all over the place.
I just looked at, a lot of them are over in Onondaga County, there's only a few here in the town of Sullivan, there's a couple over on Night Lake. It hasn't really grown to where it's, can't be managed.
Well, I think with this Micron thing coming in, it's gonna get worse. It isn't gonna get any better, it's gonna get worse.
So let's ban it.
John, have you seen many towns ban them and have success?
No, well, I don't have any in my towns that have just flat out said we're banning them, they tried to regulate them. The success, who knows if it's successful, you can go by.
Probably gonna get challenged.
We have laws in
Yeah.
place. Now, one of the things you have to recognize and look at up front is some people have already been using these things for years and years and years as short-term rental. When you talk about land use laws, you talk about grandfathering. So if somebody used their property for something that was legal at the time, once we put new regulations in, those folks are grandfathered. But there is a recognition under the law that you can amortize that use, saying, okay, from now on, you can't use it, or we have the new regulations in place that we want, and we have to come up with a number that's fair for them to amortize it, meaning get their money back on it. And you might say, okay, but those people that are already doing it, we're gonna give you 5 years, whatever we come up with, that seems reasonable. 5 years to finish up your use of what would otherwise be a banned short-term rental. And then after that, either you can't do it at all for short-term rental, or the new regulations come into play. Now, it all comes down to who's gonna watch this and how you're gonna react to it, and who's gonna handle the complaints, and what do you do with the complaints, and all that stuff. All I'm saying is with this particular law, the Kennedy's law, it looks like a workable, defensible law for regulation of those uses, should you decide you want them. But if you wanna ban it, then you make a statement that you define short-term rental and you say it's not allowed in the town of Sullivan. But maybe you put some amortization language in it. I have to look and figure out what the best time period was and talk to you guys about that, if that's what you want to do.
I would have to look at more, right now, I can't see any big benefits to the town residents.
Yeah.
I just don't see that, it's.
No, but on the other hand, John, I look at this now as like a speed zone. You know, if everyone had just continued at a regular pace, we never need speed zones. But as soon as somebody comes through here at 90, guess what? The signs go up. These haven't been an issue, because if used properly, if you could have had visitors come and be quiet and not park out on the streets, these never are an issue. And I do believe in landowners' rights to use their property for what they would like to use most of the time, as long as they're not disrupting everyone else. So to go and completely ban that process seems a little onerous to me, that's all.
But Jeff, in most cases, the people that are going to the short-term rental, they're not residents, they don't they own the property, but they don't
Don't live here.
reside in
But
that.
that's not something the courts have said is permissible for us to take into account, that's that Commerce Clause thing.
Yeah.
I was mentioning, like, a lot of the laws I wrote back in the day, I'm not gonna say which ones they are. Probably could be challenged, and I'll be fixing those, shortly after this new case came down, but that's the problem, John, is if we can't discriminate between people from out of town and out of state, because we can only regulate the property, not the people, which is what the courts have said consistently. And I've got a lot of that stuff, I sent a lot of it out for you guys, take a look at it when you get a chance.
I will, but there's another couple of issues. People that are living on Night Lake have lived there, or other places have lived there all their life, so all of a sudden you have a short-term rental move in between them. How can we let a rental property move into a residential section? Is the
Sure, you gotta
zoning-
say short-term, because anybody can rent long-term, their lakefront property, that's allowed. The short-term, you're right about the short-term, which is studies have shown the unregulated short-term rentals have become a nuisance in those neighborhoods, and we hear about complaints all the time. So the question is, can this board find a balance to allow those uses regulated, or do you say, we just don't want them, ban them, and let's see what happens? That's what you're balancing.
I'd be glad to vote for it if I could see the benefits of doing it.
So, one of the thoughts, and I don't care about what you guys do, one or the other, but one of the thoughts would be, someone mentioned property rights, so you're balancing somebody's property rights to maybe be able to rent their house. There's also potential for obtaining occupancy taxes and fees, which could be a benefit to the area.
Right.
And there's also, by the way, what I would say to this is, if you guys get into this, you carefully establish what a permitting fee would be, because I suspect it's gonna keep our code officer very busy if there are complaints. Because I'm dealing with some of these complaints in other communities where we have regulated them. And people are very good about getting around those regulations. They find ways to try to defeat the regulations. So we do go to court with those. And we do, if we have to bring them to court, then we try to enforce that law. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So it's a balancing act. This is something, I think, that came because we had a few complaints, and that's what we're looking at.
So how did you find out which ones are along the lake? I mean,
You can just.
go online?
You can just search it.
Why don't we try the carrot and stick approach? That the town board has discussed this, and right now, we're going to forego any relation to restrictions on short-term rentals. Please be cognizant of your neighbors and respect your neighbors that live next door to you, year round. Just send a letter to them and tell them, hey, if you're gonna short-term rental this thing, there's no parking on the streets because of emergency vehicles, you need to keep the noise down to a minimum, that kind of thing. Just send them a courtesy letter, and if we get more complaints or get complaints about it, then we'll just have to pull out the hammer and go your route and just ban them.
Probably be a good start.
Okay, so how do you want to get, how do you?
Yeah,
how
because
do you
I'm
get that
assuming
message
you've
out?
seen some of these develop over the years,
Oh, yeah.
where
Yeah.
now all of a sudden the Verbos, the Airbnbs, we start saying we're gonna regulate. I gotta believe they're gonna raise their hackles and come in and try to work and get a good working relationship.
Yeah.
Because right now, what we have is nothing.
Right.
If somebody comes in and raises hell till 2 a.m. having a bachelor party, we have no teeth to send Larry in there and say, hey, you guys gotta stop, right? And that's when the neighbors show up at our town meeting. So we can kick the can down the road,
Well,
but
we've
that's
already
gonna
got-
come.
We've already got two
Yeah.
people that have come in and complained about these things, but we have not sent any letters out. Larry, have you done anything about the two that Caplings and who were the other ones?
We don't have a noise ordinance, so there's nothing we can do with that.
Yep.
And as far as.
No recommend.
Street parking is all just Andy.
What's that again, Larry?
Street parking is a call to Andy. New York State has required that this year, short-term rentals have to have a fire extinguisher and working smokes, that's it.
That's all part of building code anyways.
Not for residential. No fire extinguisher.
Only if you're building new or renovating, right? Alright, so does that sound like an idea? We'll get a list.
Sounds good.
Then we'll
Just
send
one
a
other
letter.
comment. If there were three, properties, three waterfront properties, and a short-term rental went in between the middle one, you can be guaranteed that the ones on the outside, their property values would be impacted by that as well. So it gets a little bit more complicated than just looking at whether or not you can put a rental. It has other implications that we need to think about.
I think in a letter we can put that, we're looking at banning it. So that gives it, that's kind of a hammer letter right there. Hey, if you wanna keep doing this, you gotta play ball with your neighbors. Larry?
I know down in the Bridgeport area, I've noticed 7 installed recently. People from out of state come in, buy them at price, no dickering of the cost. And next week they got them on Airbnb and renting.
Right, I don't think we can get too far down the road.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, you almost got.
We'll have so many grandfathered in, it'll be
Yeah, that's what I'm
irrelevant.
afraid, because like John said, you grandfather in, we can put this amortization thing in, which is gonna be a nightmare.
That'll be a nightmare.
That'll be a
I
nightmare.
agree.
Yeah.
They could be grandfathered in, John, but they would still have to follow our rules about not, parking and all that other stuff. Is that correct?
Well, what you would do is, even if they're grandfathered in, you'd set a, in this, but this, if you do a potential new law for this, then you give them so many years and they gotta come in and apply under the new law. That's what this recommendation is from the Association of Towns, which has done extensive programs and things like, and NICOM's done programs on this, and everybody comes back around to the same thing, which is we can adopt our own local short-term rental standards, which would address fire extinguishers and things like that. I've got the Kennedy's one that has that in there. It has a bunch of different requirements. So I would say, as you mull through this, pull this one out and read it. I think when you read it, you go, this is not too unreasonable, but it certainly puts handcuffs on people, but it still allows it. So maybe it's a balance, I don't know. But he's gonna be busy dealing with these things. So ultimately, you gotta decide if we're gonna let the code officer issue the permits, or are we gonna send them to the planning and or zoning board, which is also, it's a nightmare if you want that, because once a neighbor hears that next door is gonna be an Airbnb, you bet your bottom dollar they'll be at the town hall. And they might, if you ban it, you have to have a public hearing to ban it.
Right.
And they'll be here for that too, and that's fine.
One more comment about, we're talking basically about Night Lake property anyways, but there are over 50% of the lots on Night Lake are 50 feet wide. So when you go down those streets, you're looking at 50-foot wide properties, and as we talk about parking, there just is not parking unless they park on the road. So
Or unless they use them properly. John, I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I've used some of the short term.
Yeah.
They're very nice. You would never know I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm very respectful of everyone around me, like I would be if I was your neighbor. So it's a matter of those that abuse the system that are creating this issue.
Exactly.
it's turned out to be a business, that's what we have.
I
There's a lot of
understand.
articles online about what happened up in the Lake Placid area, because they went through this 10 years ago. And that became a party haven and all kinds of bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, and just the village character really got impacted by it. So they created some laws, there were lawsuits, they've already been through it. You guys are fortunate enough to have a lake area, and you're right, they're very small lots, so you hope people are gonna be like Jeff and be respectful, but you can't guarantee it. But there are certain things. One of the key things about the Kennedy's law is it says flat out, this is not a right. We're gonna issue a permit. If you violate it, it could be summarily extinguished. But then it becomes enforcement. They keep using it, it becomes enforcement. Now, Casanova, I know we have people that are currently no permits for their short-term rental program, and they're just doing it anyway. It's just chase, you gotta shut them down. It's easy to find them because they list their property right now. And then you gotta bring them to court. And I think I told you the story in Skinneapolis, what they did out there. They had a law in place, and their code officer got money from the town board to hire a private investigator to snoop around, rent one of these things, didn't have a permit, stayed overnight, and then when he got up in the morning, he handed him a ticket for the big come to court because he was gonna be the witness and the whole thing, so it gets weird. I don't suggest you do that here, but it's, all kinds of stuff can happen.
Seems like overkill, so.
So you want us to send a letter first?
Okay, getting a letter out would help, and before the spring market comes up.
So draft up a letter, John.
Oh, me?
Uh,
What?
I'll draft up the letter, you can polish it up.
I'll look at it, yeah.
Okay. Alright, everybody good with that or no?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Alright.
You can capture what you want, John, I'll clean it up. That's all of it.
No firefighter applications, no budget modifications. The Senate will be, the state Senate will be holding a hearing on their final climate action scoping plan. And as I've said before, everybody should pay attention to this. They want to limit your miles driven by your vehicles. They want to take away your gas appliances. They want to ban your gas vehicles, diesel vehicles in 2035. This is all through the state, through this climate action scoping plan. On Thursday, January 19th, the Senate will hold a public hearing to examine the legislative and budgetary actions necessary to implement the Climate Action Council's final scoping plan pursuant to the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. In December, the council released their final scoping plan for how the state will meet its ambitious greenhouse gas emissions reduction and renewable energy goals. The plan affects all sectors of the state's economy and society, and as such will have significant budgetary and legislative implications. Any person or entity is permitted and encouraged to submit written testimony. Written testimony must be submitted no later than 5 p.m. on the day of the hearing, which is Thursday, January 19th. You have to submit it to financechair@newyorksenate.gov. For more information about the hearing, go to notice of public hearing on the final state action scoping plan. This is dangerous stuff, folks, and I've seen one report where this is going to cost New York State hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's not going to cost the state a dime. It's going to cost everybody here out of your pocket. So people want to know why other people are heading to Florida. It's because of half-baked ideas like that. And also on public hearings, there is the proposed New Boston Solar Project, and it's an in-person community meeting, and
It's hosted by the solar company.
so hosted by the solar company. It will be at the Sullivan Free Library on Tuesday, January 4th from 5 to 7. And this is the project where they want to put 500 acres of solar panels over on, they're calling it 7502 Seaver Road. But actually it's New Boston Road and Seaver Road. There's roads that interconnect over there. And this is a badged 50 megawatt power plant. And that's what the peak output at one point in time could be. It will never reach that. It'll be about half, 24 megawatts. And in weather like we have around here, it's always sunny every day, we all know, and everything. During the winter, that will put out about 7 megawatts. So we're going to cover 500 acres of farmland for a 7 megawatt power plant is absolutely insane.
So the reason the company's doing, may I, John?
Yep, go ahead.
The reason the company's doing this is this Office of Renewable Energy, which is the one the governor created, John's talked about before. They set up this agency that's going to take the lead on citing these things all over the state of New York. Well, they came up with their own rules to control their own actions, and one of the rules they have is that the solar company is required to have at least one public information meeting. Now, I don't even know how they're gonna run this, but I think if anybody that shows up that wants to speak their mind, I think they should very well be allowed to. I'm gonna go to it, and I know some representatives from Lennox, which it's gonna be in Lennox too, are gonna go to it. And we're gonna be able to see and hear this group and, you know, sort of see what they're made of. Like, do they seem like they know what they're doing? That's a question I would have. How they plan to approach the drainage issues that this might create. There's a lot of stuff going on. The bottom line is the state's created this system, if you get over the 20 megawatts, where they say to us, just like the other things John talked about, your local zoning doesn't really matter in our decision-making as a state. We're gonna take care of it. You can tell us about your zoning, and we might decide that we don't like it because we have goals that we wanna meet that go beyond what your local regulations are. So that's really what's at stake here. And this might be the only chance anybody gets to have a physical appearance in front of these people. So that, you know, it's interesting they did it from 5 when everybody's
That was at work.
kind of getting out of work
Yeah,
still, and you gotta drive to home, and then
Right.
by the time you get there, what's it gonna be, 6:15? You know, if you have dinner, forget it. So that's an interesting time they set up, but I'll be there at 5, and I think some other people will.
They're also proposing a 20 megawatt storage facility on that site.
Storage facility. You
Yeah.
mean a battery facility?
Yeah,
Which has its own issues and problems.
which has its own fire issues.
So, be interesting if any of our fire chiefs showed up to listen to this.
Well, maybe I'll ring their bell.
Maybe, yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right? So, my guess is that you're gonna get a dog and pony show from these guys. They probably have some engineer and a couple investors, local investors that, or not local at all, but.
Well, this guy that
Owner
owns
won't
the
be there.
property
He
is
won't be
from
there.
Pennsylvania,
He's not
so
gonna
he
be there.
could care less about the
Yeah,
neighbors.
he won't be there.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We're involved in 2 of these down in Cortland County, and we've seen this whole process. It's what you might imagine it will be. So we're appealing one right now to the state. I think we're at the
You're
second.
appealing it at this,
Yeah,
to the,
ORES has decided to approve it. We filed one appeal. We're filing the second appeal now.
this is in the infancy stages, so I think if we kind of try to thwart it now, we might get somewhere before it even gets to.
What you want is that lawsuit. That lawsuit
Yes.
comes out the right way, then all bets are off, because now your local laws will apply to it.
Now, if this thing is approved, there's only 3 working dairy farms in the town of Sullivan, where there was, used to be hundreds of them. And there's only 1 working dairy farm left in the town of Lennox. And with this solar farm, this takes that one dairy farm off that list. So Lennox will have none, and we'll be down to 2 here in the town of Sullivan. So I think that's an important point that we need to make.
That's it.
Agriculture, we're an agricultural county, we're an agricultural town, and this takes that off the playing field. So.
Agreed.
Do we have wetlands over there?
Oh,
Oh, there's gonna be wetlands.
oh, there's wetlands.
Yeah, you got all kinds of stuff in play with a project that big, as you can imagine.
Okay, does anybody else have anything out there? Yes, Art.
Yeah, the meeting on Tuesday, January 24th at the library will be in open house format, whatever that means. So it does kind of indicate there may be ongoing ability to walk in from 5 to 7 p.m., but who knows what open house format means.
Exactly.
Further, the siting plan does require them to put an application in both at this siting agency and to you all, but it doesn't indicate that they're going to give any shrift to the application.
All the language says they will take it into consideration.
Take it into consideration.
And all the prior determinations have come out that, in their view, that the town's regulations, insert name of town, are not conducive to the program, the goals of the program, and therefore they're going to overrule our zoning powers.
Well, what would they say if we decided, okay, this is 500 acres and a nuke plant only takes up 200 acres? We decided, hey, we're gonna engage somebody and dump a nuke plant right, on the same farm. The state would have a heart attack. They'd have a fit, and there'd be all kinds of regulations about it, which nuclear power is way more efficient than most efficient power.
And those regs further require them to consider wetlands somehow, so there's something more in there anyway.
It says consider, but I think we know the outcome's gonna be.
Yeah. They've been over there working on this farm for about a month now.
They're doing all their studies,
They're
doing
doing all their
wildlife
studies.
studies,
Yeah.
wetland studies. They have to do that in order to log in their portal information into that system. And we've been watching online what they've got done so far.
Yes, sir.
Further, on the short-term rentals, I was here for the people coming in and complaining about the short-term rentals, and it seems like, if Skinny Atlas can have, some sort of, requirement on the books, I think we owe it to Oneida Lake, to our town, to have, the property owners to have, something on the books as well that, can permit these things and provide some level of responsiveness to, especially the out-of-town owners who are putting these things on rental. So I'd like to see something come from this board that goes along the route of Kennedy's or Skinny Atlas, something anyway.
Okay, thanks for everything. Yes, ma'am.
Would anyone on the board object to me getting a key fob so I can come into the building?
What do you need that for? You can come in anytime, can't you?
I have to bang on the door or leave my stuff in the mailbox. I asked Beth, she said it was up to you.
We'll talk about it, I guess. Okay? Okay. Anything else from highway? Very good?
Nothing else. I'll go good.
Alright. You have anything?
I went down and
Yes,
took
no,
pictures.
I'll give you next, Larry, gentleman in front of you.
Okay.
I was wondering if I could go into executive session with you?
So
Yes,
we
you'll have
have
to talk to
to
him about
know,
what?
we have to know generally, it has to be an acceptable reason to go into executive session to do it.
Just can't.
How about you do this one, send an email to the supervisor. And then I'll talk to the supervisor, we meet almost every minute, twice a month, we can figure out something.
Okay. Where do I get that?
Online, straight on, just townofsullivan dot.
Jay Becker at townofsullivan.org. Okay? Larry, what do you got? Larry, what do you got?
Well, I just also wanted to tell you that, I've identified 24 vacant houses in our town, about half of which should be torn down.
Okay, are you sending them letters?
I can, but, we have to clear up this enforcement action after the 30 days.
Okay.
What does the town want to do?
Yeah, there has to be a plan for these. We've called them zombie properties, John, for a long
You tear them
time.
down, you gotta do the asbestos.
Yeah, there's a lot to, this isn't
That's
just,
okay.
hey, take it down, because
Right.
there's a
Well, I
lot.
Harvey,
tried
the ones
calling
you
the
need to
city of
do.
Rome, because I wanted to do it, remember about 3 years ago, well, it was pre-COVID, because they've got a team of guys that they sent, and they're municipal employees, and they do asbestos.
Oh, yeah, forgot about
And I wanted to do an IMA with them, but I could never get the mayor to call me back.
There's a lot to these things. Other than, I like the, oh, hey, just tear it
If
down.
there's a mortgage, you know, none of them have mortgages. That's one way you get the attention if there's a mortgage. But if they're zombie properties, basically, they walk away.
Yeah, but then who's paying for it? That's where we get into trouble.
Well, what we've done is torn them down and then put the, cost back onto the property, and then it goes to the tax sale. You don't get all your money back, but it cleans up an eyesore.
And there's procedures, we have to follow all the procedures to get to that point, so we have to go through the process for that, and that's fine. I mean, maybe what you do is you prioritize the ones that are the most egregious, maybe you attack them that way, whichever way.
Do we need executive session for anything? Yes, sir.
Question, what is the address for this zone change property on Route 31? Anybody got it?
What's your address?
My address on Black Point Road is 9030
And it's the adjacent parcel.
It's right next door to where the Laverne Ranch store used to be.
Right next to,
Right.
that doesn't.
It's all going, it's going to the east.
Right in between Black and Point and
Got it.
Wilson goes.
Close enough, yeah. All right, everybody good then?
Yeah.
Need a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion by Jeff, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Montroy. Any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried.